Kenny, what is your solution in the way that the new alpha man moves? What is the new proper way for discipline in your perspective?
I parsed that out completely, and then we can spin the block. But I'm gonna answer you, AP.
Yeah, no, I just want it short form so that the audience that's actually listening hears it, fully understands it, and like you don't ever have to circle the block on on any BS allegation about this dude being such and such. You know what I'm saying?
Today's alpha man was expressed when I said we are all the shepherds of our community. Good, bad, or indifferent. My difference with Marcus's views as for walking away from those toxic women, even the one that came up. If I saw on the street the social contract as a man would be to put my life on the line if she was in harm's way. I can only be intentional in being optimistic by trying and speaking to her. As for this is what is required. You're within my village, my locale. I care for you and I wish for you to be safe. I wish for you to have introspection, digest what I say, and think about falling in line, because there's going to be a lot of men hurt if you keep behaving the way that you do, that ultimately care for you. But I'm not going to stop trying. And as I said before, AP, I'm going to repeat it again. I'm going to keep trying and hope for change. Another caveat I ask is that girl code needs to be broken and the sisters need to help us out, those ones aligned with traditional values, to be able to call out bad behavior and stand with the brothers that are trying so that we can get somewhere a little bit faster. And that was the end part when I was being called a certain type of thing. So I had no problem with repeating it.
Got it.
Respect.
I think
What
we all
about
get
you,
it now,
Clout?
though.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
So when it comes to the discipline piece inside of a relationship, what does that look like to you?
I think today the best way is verbal. Speak. You got to speak sternly. You got to speak with intention. It might take a certain tone. I think that's most of it. I think the women were also correct in that leaving is an option, but I think for certain types of relationships that's not going to work. Like, if you're married, if you have kids, if you're really trying to do something that's lasting till death do you part, then obviously leaving is really not an option. So it's really going to come down to how you use your words. How you use your words, and it comes down to body language. All of those things are important in leadership, I think. Also,
It's,
listening.
it,
Listening is
yeah.
obviously important as well.
See, those are things that I hear Marcus preach quite. I've been on several panels with Marcus, and I actually met him in real life. And these are things that he preaches on a very consistent basis. And I really would have loved for him and Kenny to finish that conversation. I kind of know what Marcus's answer is, but what say you, sir?
Can you react the specific question?
Absolutely. You are. How do you think is the best way to deal with an unruly woman?
Oh yeah, you gotta if you're dating her, you need to explain what you're gonna allow within a relationship, and if she's not gonna acquiesce to that, to leave her. I'm not gonna browbeat, argue. When you start off a process of trying to argue somebody into doing what you want them to do, you're already from a losing position, because if you had enough leverage, then you wouldn't have to argue someone down to get them to do what you want. And the process of arguing somebody down creates contention in a combative relationship, So you'll constantly be in the throes of having to consistently argue with someone. I think the better way is if you can establish a relationship of trust where even if she doesn't understand what you're talking about, she respects you enough to hear you out and then attempt to do what you're saying to do, but due to her belief in you versus what you're saying, then you can move forward. But if you're going to be in a relationship consistently bickering and going back and forth with the woman, what it does is it lowers in her mind your authority as a man because you engage in constant arguments. It's similar to if you're arguing with your children. If you're sitting there yelling and screaming and cursing them out and they're cursing you back out, you created on your own an imbalance in power versus you calmly or sternly telling them, hey, you cannot go to XYZ. This is an unsafe place. I don't want you at this party, XYZ. And then they say, well, I'm going anyway. And then you and them get the fighting and arguing back and forth. You've diminished your ability as a parent to effectively parent because you brought yourself to the level of them where you and them engaging in the same way creates a relationship of equal power, so to say. So it removes the leverage you have as a parent.
And of course, Trev, what say you, sir?
All right, so I'll say this. I actually want to pose a question too, because this is rather easy in these circumstances. So, if my whole thing is vet well, you have to vet well, and you just have to see how people respond to certain things. Just like women are constantly looking for red flags, I think we do way too much courting and not enough vetting when we don't look for red flags. A lot of mistakes that we made, a lot of men thinking that they are going to buy the woman happiness or they are going to submit to her will and give her happiness, and they make those mistakes. Those are grave mistakes, because once a woman loses respect for you, it's nearly impossible to get it back. So the main thing that you want to establish is she has to respect you, and there's different ways for a woman to respect you. So you have to understand what a woman respects to begin with to see if you were that type of man for that woman in the first place. So these are things that you have to look for very early in a relationship, and you have to be ready to walk away, right? You heard your boy Trump say you're a horrible negotiator if you're not willing to walk away. The person who has the power in a relationship is the one who's willing to walk away. And that doesn't mean that you're holding it over their head, but they have to understand that you know what your value is. And if they do not treat you like you feel like you should be, then you will leave. Your tolerance level for bullshit has to be low. Your patience should be great, but not for bullshit at all, right? Now, I have a ridiculous question. I know we're going to end up wrapping pretty soon, but I got a ridiculous question if we could do it real quick. Marcus, I want to start with you because I know you got all the answers. I want to see how you would answer this one. What would you suggest for a person who is 3 kids in, mortgage, and married, right? And his woman no longer respects him, right? She didn't start that way. Maybe she had children and had a ridiculous hormone change or just the life shit that happens. Maybe he lost his job. He got nothing. It's not as sweet, right? But if it's just maybe he got a new job and she found different men that she admires more. What do you say to a man like that? What do you tell him to do who has everything to lose and know that his life is destroyed the moment he tries to leave? He will lose access to his children. He will lose access to his money, his house, half his 401k and pension. What do you say to a man who has everything to lose and has a horrible now wife?
You're muted. You're muted.
This is a very, very tough situation because initially, prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of the cure. So when your points about vetting would have been the most ideal way to not let the relationship extend that far, which is why early on you shouldn't be tolerant of certain things so you can know that that person has a workable personality. Now, if they did and they lost respect for you, you need to determine where that line of respect was lost at, and you've got to start from there, rebuilding that trust brick by brick by brick. And if you're unable to do it, then the person who she does respect, you need to elicit and bring in. Unfortunately, this is the worst case scenario. because your woman ultimately should have respect for you. But if she's lost all respect for you, you've got to find a way to get somebody that she does respect that can open a line of communication so you both can be heard to get to the end result. But again, this is an extremely unideal situation because you shouldn't be giving relationships, multiple dates, conversations to women that don't respect you, or you see the inclination that they will not respect you moving forward. So it's kind of hard for me to see that scenario playing out if you follow step A. But if you're already in a situation, it's going to require 100 times more work than it would have to just vet it initially. Rebuilding trust and respect from somebody that no longer trusts and respects you is a long, hard road. You're gonna be walking down that road for damn near feeling like forever. It can be done, but it will be extremely hard. It will be extremely hard. But you're gonna have to find the person that respects, that understands the situation, and wants the relationship to move forward. Maybe that be counseling if you know that she'll respect the opinion of the counselor, the therapist, or whatever that is, the preacher or whatever. As long as they understand the goal and you're confident that they want to see that relationship flourish, and they're trying to give you the tools to do it. Most times when women especially lose respect for men within relationships, it probably boils down to communication and trust. So you may need to gain some more effective communication skills, or a better way to express your point and exert your authority without it coming off as an attack. So that's the answer I got. But that's a bad situation. That's a really bad situation to be in.
But you know what's crazy? That's the situation that a lot of men are in, right? It's a lot more popular than we wish it was. They're like knee deep and they have no answers, right? And I appreciate your response. However, to a man who's in that situation or maybe watching right now, he's still like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, there's some men who have tried several counselors, right? There are some men who have tried those and it didn't work. And so that's the crazy part, right? Because people, that's like sometimes your first line of defense. And a lot of people have tried it. They went to the religious counselors, they went to therapists, they went to different things, and to no avail. Sometimes that's just what it is.
So Trev, it's hard to answer a broad question without seeing a woman specifically, but the right person, you can pinpoint where the issue lies. Some issues may be unfixable, but I think the large, vast majority of issues you can find where that issue, and you've got to work from that point. Wherever y'all went left at is where you need to go to and rework that. So say you got caught cheating or whatever, and that's the point where she lost respect for you. You need to do some soul searching and present yourself in a different way where you can come to her honestly and then have a conversation about what you were struggling with that caused you to do that. Why you hit it and why you moved in this manner, and show steps that you're trying to improve from that point, so she can see that you're showing some form of change for the betterment, as opposed to I just won't do that again. Because the worst part about, from the women I've spoken to, the worst part about cheating don't necessarily be the cheating. It'd be that you lied to them and swindled them. They was the last person to know, and they lose respect for you because they don't feel that you hold them in high enough esteem to be honest with them. And that be where the trust really breaks down.
I could say that, but the amount of men that cheat is like it's not even in a 30 percentile. So, but what I would say is like a lot of so some men just may not be viewed as a protector. Like a lot of women will lose respect for you if they don't feel like they're protected. Maybe you don't even have it in you. Maybe you're just not a confrontational dude. Right? That might not be you. Maybe you just want to be chill, but she wants you to rah-rah. She wants you to be out here, whatever, and busting your gun or slapping somebody up or whatever, or cursing somebody out, and that ain't in you. And now you've already had an opportunity. Maybe you got played or embarrassed, and unless you actually get another opportunity to do that, how could she build that respect and trust back in you?
Yeah. See, I was kind of alluding to that before. And also, Marcus, I just want you to know I wasn't trying to height shame you earlier, right? Just so you know. But
I'll be taking offense.
I appreciate most of this. You're usually very consistent. But one thing I do think that you vastly overlook is the impact of your height on the respect that you get from women. I think that you vastly overlook that. So it's like a lot of the solutions, I think that you genuinely think that they're coming from simply like your communication skills, which a lot of it I'm sure is coming from your communications. But being that the percentile of height that you're in, you automatically command a certain level of respect from women that most men under 6 foot will never be able to ever get. So I just think that a lot of times that the reason why some of your stuff works very well for you is because you have a physicality that kind of matches it. You know what I'm saying? That gives you a lot of extra points. So when you give that advice, try to put that into the consideration. You get what I'm saying?
No, I appreciate that, and I think you're right because privilege is a like tall privilege, hands privilege, or
Yeah,
financial privilege, or
that's
whatever.
true.
It,
That's
it
true.
does create a point of leverage. So what I be speaking to mostly so is whatever the point of leverage that's your strong suit to lean like not. I'm not saying like lean in the league with your wallet, any of those things. I'm just saying that we all have something that attracts the other person to us, and that thing, if valuable enough, creates leverage if you remove that thing from them, be it uh you being the emotional stability for that person, you, or like you say, you being the security for that person. When they can lean into that aspect of who you are, it makes what I'm saying a whole lot easier. But the initial thing, the most important part of this whole thing is in the beginning you have to set parameters for the relationship, and you cannot continue moving forward with the relationship with a disrespectful person. You just can't. It's just gonna be y'all fighting until the relationship ends. You've got,
Mm-hmm.
but you yourself can't be contentious. You yourself can't be argumentative. You yourself can't be looking for ways to pick at the person, and it requires self discipline on you to operate as the bigger man in all the scenarios where you say, you know what, this is not fruitful. This
Right.
conversation can't move forward to fruition by me engaging at this point. So
Yeah. Check.
I'm gonna let you have it right now, and we can bring it back and discuss it later when cooler heads prevail, so you can actually understand the point. I can get through the information, and I'm not arguing with you. Because once those walls go up, they up, and you gotta
Yeah.
wait for them to come down to actually speak to somebody.
Yeah, that's honestly the
True.
toughest part of these conversations when women come into the conversation because it's like sometimes it's hard to get their emotion back down and just bring it back to all right, like look, I know what we said might have came out a little wrong, but like just hear us out because we're not trying to shut you down and ignore you. Like this is all for us to grow, you know. And I think we gotta keep that in a reminder every time we have these conversations. Like yo, even though we disagree on things, the whole point here is to be in good faith and for us to understand one another. So sometimes we can easily get lost in emotion and start picking at each other, but it's like we just need a gentle reminder, like, hey, you know, this is to bring the community closer together. Even if the women are upset, like you said, we gotta just like not try to pick back at them, stay calm, hear them out, have empathy, and I think that the conversations can continue to grow.
Yeah, and just real quick, I wanna answer Trev's question real fast. Marcus, you made a very valid point here just a minute ago when you said you can't be in a relationship where the respect is not there. I understand that you could be married to this woman, y'all could be 3 kids in, but once the respect is gone and it doesn't look like it's coming back, you got to make arrangements. As a man, you got to make arrangements because you're not going to be in a, being in a relationship like that is going to be unhealthy to your well-being, and it could lead to some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier because you're not in the right headspace because you're being constantly disrespected and moving to like getting that other man in. Hell no. Oh, absolutely not. But
No, that's
hopefully
real.
y'all are at a place to where you can split amicably to where you can still see your kids, and I'm not talking about on an every other weekend kind of basis, where you can still be an active participant in their lives. And hopefully you've built and cultivated a relationship that allowed with her that allow where you don't have to fight to get the time with your kids. But being in a
True.
disrespectful relationship as a man is like a woman being in a relationship without her feeling love. Is just not going to be successful. and you gotta cut your losses sometimes.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. Cut your losses.
How
Marcus, we
often?
gotta get into super chats.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
gotta get
Let me.
into super
I just want to
chats.
ask you one question. How often do
All
you
right.
think that men are like maintaining frame, being stoic? Women are just being disrespectful, and then they just it happens out the blue. This was a respectful woman. You maintained yourself, and now she's just picking at you, become disrespectful, and is trying to attack and fight you out the blue.
I think an event occurred to make that happen. Out of the blue is I
Yeah,
don't think
so
is
so so
realistic.
so it's an event. They may not be reasonable, but it'll be some type of event.